Hi, we have a small group. I was having internet trouble earlier. I wonder if people are having trouble. Has everybody's internet been okay? Howdy. Too much internet problems. I actually thought mine was the cable the guy made, but it might have been something else. Well, we've got lots to do anyways. We'll get it all recorded for people that can't be here. How's everybody? Made it through the storms okay last night? No big trauma? No trees down? Power didn't go out? Good. Ours either. It looks like it was bad all around our neighborhood though, so we're glad. Hey, somebody. Hey. Okay, well, let's get started. Exciting stuff to do. I'm gonna stop this. Video. Okay. Share my screen. So nice having this Zoom screen just right in front of me to know what's going on, but I don't get to do that. You guys wouldn't be able to see anything going on, and I wouldn't be able to do anything. So let's see, on Discord, I posted our application from last time in our general 102 chat. So this is the application that we had been working on in our last class. If you're going to use this one, do make sure you make an empty file folder to unzip it into, or else you'll end up with pieces all over. Better to have it all in one file. So I already have it. I'm going to go ahead and get it open. And let's look at what we had here. First of all, in our solution, Logan, does your power go off a lot, or did you lose a tree? We like it here in Springfield. Our house is kind of like on the top of a hill, sort of. It's not noticeable, but it is. So we have a lot of wind. So far, we've just lost branches. In Carthage, we used to lose lots of tree parts. Knocks out the power for a little, so just wind, huh? Yeah, you know, just at certain areas. And sometimes if they get the problem area finally fixed, it can be better. Or it can get bad again for a while. We had one of those Bradford pears in our yard in Carthage, and so it would always, you know, we'd lose like half of it or a fourth of it. And then we were always so happy when it grew back. I don't know why, because they're not very good trees, right? That's why we're trying to get rid of them everywhere. So let's see what we had in our solution. We stuffed a lot of stuff. First of all, our first project was just a console-based project where we used the file and directory classes, and then file info. We kind of expanded on that a little bit and used the info classes that require us to create instances. And then we created a forms-based application to read a text file and display the data on a form. And then the last thing, oops, sorry, those were backwards, right? The first application we created was actually writing a file to create our sayings file. And then we created an application to read that. So let's take a look at our read, because we were just kind of finishing that one up. I'm going to open the form for that read saying application. There's a couple things I'd like to look at on this, maybe update a bit. First of all, my label 2 down here, we want that to be our message label. So I want it to say something nice and friendly when our application starts up, like welcome. So I'm going to change that text property. We have our label named appropriately, but I'll go ahead and update our text. And we might not need to. That might not ever show up to our user. And you'll see some developers like to just, you know, disable that or something like that. I kind of like to put some helpful text in there so that the next person that comes along will see that label. You know how they can kind of hide on you if you're not really paying attention. Remember, you can use this drop-down list to look for things like that that might be hiding from you, from some previous developer, or even from your own hand. Okay, that looks good. And then I want to look at our code. I remember we clicked the OK button to read our saying file. So I'm going to take a look at this. Looks like we put all our code in the form load. Well, it's a good thing we're checking this. Is that really what we want? Let's think about it. In this application, we start out saying that we have a stream reader object that we're going to refer to as FIL. And in our form load, we check to see if a file exists named saying.txt. If it does, we open it with our stream writer. We process each row in that file as a separate line to be read. And as we read a line, we put it in our text box. If we encounter some sort of error, an I/O error, like we were reading from a flash drive and it got yanked out of the machine or something like that, we're going to catch the exception object that the system generates. We're going to name that exception object exe, and we're going to use its message to update our message. Otherwise, we're going to update the message to say that our file was loaded. If our file does not exist from our original if statement, then we're going to output the message that the file is unavailable. We really don't have much use for our OK button if all of this code isn't in it. So we could just kind of get rid of that button, couldn't we? Because we have all of our code up here in our form load, which is fine. So, irrelevant OK button. I'd like to try something different with our file name. If you remember last time, we had to copy our saying.txt file into our project folder's bin debug folder so that we could find it, because when our application is executing, that bin debug folder is our current directory, our current folder that the system is using. So we had to put our saying.txt file in that folder. We thought then, gosh, it would be really nice if we could put this someplace else, like right in our project folder, but we weren't able to find it that way. Well, the textbook kind of gives us a good way to get around that problem. Let me find it. And this is looking at the PDF document. I'm going to go to page 851 or so. And on this page, they give an example of how we could specify the name of our text file using a relative path. We're going to try it. Notice there's 2 dots and then slashes. We can use backslashes too. Either one is fine. Let's try first with our file.exists. Right now, this is running and everything's working perfect because the system is looking for our file in our bin debug folder and it exists there. We're going to change that. Let's put 2 dots, a slash, 2 dots, and another slash. Everything is working fine with that. It's saying, okay, what you're doing. Well, what we're doing is we're saying, based on the current folder, this slash right here, I want you to go up to the parent folder. That's what the dot dot means. So we're going to go up a level. So since we're in bin debug, that would take us to bin. Then this slash says, based on the current folder, which is bin now, I want you to go up a level to the parent. That's what the dot dot means. Well, the bin folder is in our project folder. So that means if we put this dot specification, we're going to be saying, look for this file in our project folder. And that's where we want it. So let's copy this. So that when we actually open the file, we're specifying the same location. Now at this time, we do not have that file in our project folder. So I want to run this. Hang on, question. Did you get it to work too? Awesome. I think that there's something wrong with the internet. Do you think? Today seems to be a bad day. Everything is just taking forever. So here's what we added. We just added the dot syntax for path navigation. And we said we want to go up a folder and up another folder. Now I want to run this way, and we should get an error, because we should get some sort of message like the file is unavailable, because we don't have it right now in our project folder. I'm going to make sure that I'm running this application, our read saying, and run that. Now, sure enough, I got that message, file unavailable. That's what we were expecting, so that's good. Now, let's go move that file so that it is in our project folder. We know that we could use the File View, and we could use File Explorer. Let's use File Explorer this time. I want to use File Explorer, but I want to open File Explorer on my read saying project. So I'm going to right-click right on that project and choose Open Folder in File Explorer. Here's my read saying project. Now, if you unzipped in someplace that wasn't in a certain folder, you might have to navigate around a little bit in your file structure to find your read saying project. Once you've found it, we want to go into your bin folder and then debug. And our saying.txt file, we're going to cut it. And then we're going to go up a level to the parent, which is the first two dots, and then up a level to the parent, which is the second two dots. And voila, here we are in our project folder. We're going to paste. Okay, now our file does exist in this new location. So let's try running our application again. Yeah, found some data. There we are. So everybody find some data. Were you able to move your file? Get it all relocated. Good, good. Working. Okay, great. Now one minor issue. We put in this \n and \r control codes to make our file go to a new line when we had a new row. And I've got to kind of extend things out so I can actually make sure that's happening. We can make our OK button close the thing, huh? Okay, so I want to look at my form. And I'm just going to make this text box a little bit bigger because that second saying I had is kind of wordy. And I want to make sure it fits on its own line. I'm going to run it again. And nope, I'm squishing all together. That's not what I want. So let's fix that. When we read our file and we output using that control code, we actually have to have the \r first. So we have to do a carriage return before we do a new line. Those are typewriter rules. Hopefully you won't ever have to need them the way things are going. God, you might. But we had to do a carriage return before we could go down to a new line. So let's see if that fixes us. And sure enough, making sure the /R came first fixes our text box so that each of the rows in our text file ends up on its own line in our text box. Okay. Let's make our OK button close that thing. Double click it. And I'm just going to make it close the application. Now, before I exit the application, I really need to close that file, don't I? Let's see what I got here, messages. Oh, Dylan, yeah, we went to the bin.debug folder and found our saying.txt file and just copied and pasted it into our project folder. And you could just create one if you can't find it. Just, create a new text file and type a couple of lines in there. It's test data. We can make it be whatever we want. So in our application, we're doing everything really good. We're opening our file and we're reading it, reading all the lines. But we're not ever closing this file. It's not affecting us, right? We're fine. We're just great. We see everything. We put our /R/n in and we see everything on a new line. We're doing good. Well, if somebody else was running an application that wanted to update our file, they wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't be able to lock the file because we've left it open. And even though we were only reading it, it's still open. So nobody else can lock it for update. So it's important that we close our file. So let's put that in our OK button. And remember, like everything else, we want to put that in a try catch. And we named our file object FIL, and we'd like to close it. And if we can't, let's just do a catch, and we'll do a message box because that was such a great idea. And we'll say close, error occurred. Not really much anybody can do about it, but at least they'll know. Now, the way we have this application set up, we're really leaving our file open while people are looking at it on the screen. So maybe in our OK button, we're going to actually, write changes out to the file or something like that. We have to be careful doing that kind of thing, though, because if you remember from the pictures the other day, we're working with a sequential file. So the system is treating it like it's an old tape, like it only goes forward or backwards. We can't, jump around and move to specific locations in our file. So the operating system is using these kind of old classes that know how to access these sequential files. So we can open a sequential file for input or for output. We can open it for I/O, like input, output. But again, we have to be very careful. So usually we think about reading a file as input and then writing a new file as output. So when we want to do dynamic updates, we want to use a database. That's going to be the place where we're going to be. But for now, we're stuck with this old sequential file. So in learning about it, we're going to make sure that we close it. So let's run this. My file looks good. says it's loaded. I click OK. I should be closing the file and exiting the application. So perfect. Everything is good. So we've got everything all set up, just so nice, just the way we want it. We're going to change this a little bit. Oh, can't get the ready. That's okay. Do you want to show us your screen? Let me stop sharing if I can find it. There it is. Not a problem. Show us what you got. Hey, Chris, that's all right. Okay. That looks good. See that first one where you have 3 dots? Make it be 2. So 2 dots means the parent, 3 dots means nothing. Go down to that next one too. There you go. Now let's try that. Isn't that fun? Ah, still thought for sure it was going to work. Let's set up a breakpoint and see what's going on. So set a breakpoint just anywhere in that area. Go over to that. Yeah, right there. Perfect. And let's run it. So it looks like it's not running your form load, or is it? Oh, it's just not getting to that. So let's put the breakpoint on the if statement up above. Yeah. Make sure we're getting there. All right. So now let's mouse over that with all those dots and stuff and see what it says. If you put your mouse, yeah. Not much, huh? Okay, go ahead and execute that line. We want to step into, so we want to do the straight down arrow. Okay, so now mouse over that up above where it's got your file name. Do you see it? Is it showing anything? Nope. Let's go back to File Explorer because that all looks good. And go to your View menu. And on your View menu, check that box that says File Name Extensions. There we go. Awesome. Yay. So sometimes it can just drive us crazy, but we can find it. No problem. Okay, Chris, we're gonna do one last thing with this project that you might just want to watch, and then we're gonna start a new one that you can start with us. So the thing that we want to do in this one that we're working on right now is the using statement. And we're used to using, right? It goes up here at the top. It says which class libraries we'll be using in our project, which class libraries or solutions we would like copied in by the compiler. But we can use this statement in other ways too. So whenever we work with a file, it's a resource. It's a resource that's supplied by the operating system. We're seeing here that we can use some operating system type syntax that we might not be super familiar with to get to our files, and that the operating system is responsible for opening the files and making sure that we can access them. Well, we can use the using clause anytime we're accessing a resource. So I'm going to put it, let's see, I think I'm going to put it right here under our try. So a using is kind of like a try. Whenever we are working with a using statement, it does have a set of curly braces, but it also has resources that it's using. So in our example, the resource that we want to use is our stream reader file. So I'm going to cut this and I'm going to put it here as the resource we're using. Now, because it's the resource we're using, kind of like an if statement or a while statement, I have to enclose this resource within parentheses. Now, I'm going to get rid of my leftover semicolon. And what this says is, for all of the code that is within this using statement's body, I want to use this resource. That means that I'm going to allocate this resource, set up the association with the file. I'm going to let you read the resource and do whatever you want to within the using statement. And then when you're done, I'm going to automatically close and release the resource for you so that you don't have to do that yourself. So I'm going to move the closing curly brace down here to after our while. So now we have our using clause set up to say we're going to be using this file resource. As soon as we're done with the using clause body, you can release that file resource. So that means a couple of things. First of all, I don't need to close the file. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. Comment. Right, because my using clause is going to take care of that for me now. And it also means that in this case, I don't need my stream reader to be a class level object. I can just make it be an object here within the using clause. And why does that matter? Well, it's just like any other resource. If we can minimize the use of a resource, that makes things better, more efficient. You know, like my car, right? You want your resources to be used efficiently. So now, instead of having that file open from the whole time our form is being displayed until somebody clicks OK, now that file is only open for that split second that it takes to open it, read it, and fill up our text box. Then the using statement is going to be done. It's going to automatically close that file and release all of the resources associated with it. Let's make sure it still works right. We shouldn't notice any difference in executing it. It runs. When we click OK, it should end. Perfect. So the using clause is something that we can use anytime we're using resources. So if we were using an instance of a class, we could actually set that up within a using clause. As we learn about using databases, we'll see we can set those up in a using clause so we can get everything working the way we want. Does that work for everybody? We'll put a comment or two on here. So we've got if the file exists in the project folder, try to use it to open for input. Use the file. And then we're basically all done. Catch an error. Roar. Great. So we have a really good example or two of reading a file and writing a file. And we do that often. Let's look at, if you're looking at the Doyle text, which I strongly recommend, obviously for this chapter, the one assignment that you have is to implement one of these applications that's in the chapter, I think like 13-5 or something, and get it posted in TFS. So it's as easy as it sounds. Just want to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to do some coding with reading in that file. You'll have to create the file and set it up to run, to test it. But very, very similar to what we were just doing with our file. So it should be quick. Now they also talk a little bit about the binary reader and binary writer, and these are the classes that give you direct access to specific locations within a file. So for example, I could seek a specific spot, like find, bit number 47,382, and then I could read something from that byte of data or write something to that byte of data storage. Whenever we're using the binary reader and binary writer, we have to be very specific about the data we're reading or writing. So if we want to read a double, we use the read double statement. We don't read it in as a string and convert it, because we have to get the exact correct number of bits, because we're talking about a binary file here. So we have to be very, very specific, but it gives us the ability to create kind of a direct access application, get things exactly the way we want them. So take a look at that. They have an example or two using the binary reader and writer. And there are, of course, some other stream classes we'll look a little bit at in C#2 to do, like, some encrypting of data, things like that. And then we want to focus on the common dialog controls, again, that we run into as developers that make Windows so handy. So we're going to write a little application to use the file dialog controls, like file open, file save. Those are, again, common dialogs that have helped make Windows super successful in what it is, because we all know what happens if we say we want to open a file. We're used to using that common dialog. So let's close this solution that we've been working on. And let's create a new one. I'm going to create a new project. And for this one, I want it to be a Windows Forms app. And I think I found my .NET Framework one. And I'm going to name it like a menu, kind of like we did the menu app we created week before last. So this is going to be a menu that uses our common file dialogs. Menu file dialog. Can say that right. And we just really have to open file and save file. So our form this time is going to be pretty basic. We're concerned with our menu. So this is going to be file dialogs. And I think I want to make my background like a picture or something. Background image. I don't know. But I'm going to use a project resource file. and import a picture. Go ahead and find something, some sort of picture that you like. See, I just am not liking this picture folder that I have. I can use the toilet paper picture. I'll do that. Okay. It's the rolls and rolls and rolls, right? That'll be interesting. I don't like that layout. So I'm going to change my background image layout. What do I want? Don't want that. Center. That's fine. So I hope that's not too distracting. What we're really going to be concerned on or about for this application is our menu bar. So I'm just putting a picture back there so I know which one it is when I'm looking at it. But I really want to create a menu bar. Let's go find our menu. And if you remember when we created that last time, it was under a special container for menus and toolbars, but we can also find it under our all windows forms. So we have our menu strip. When we drop our menu strip on our form, it's going to automatically be popped up to the top, and we're going to have the component for our menu strip added to the component tray down in the bottom. When we look at our menu strip properties, we could change anything that we wanted to. We don't normally need to change much. When we build our menu, remember we start with the name of our menu item and we put an ampersand before the character that's going to be the hotkey or the access key. So our file menu, if we press the Alt key, remind us that F is the hotkey or access key for the file menu. So I put the ampersand before the F. Then if I press Alt again, file O is the access key for open. So I'll do amper open. Then for save, press Alt. Save is the S key. And save as, if we press Alt again to look at that, save as is the A key. The second one, right? And then in our form, we'd like to exit. But before the exit menu item, I want one of those bars, you know, a separator. So I'm going to right click and try to add that. I think I have to add my exit menu item first. Amper exit. And then on exit, I'm going to right click and say I want to insert a separator. There it is. We could have a separator between open and save too. Some applications do, some don't. That looks nice. Now we have open, separator, save, save as, separator, and then exit. Beautiful menu. Now let's go ahead and create a help. And our help menu is H. And then we want to create an about. And if I look at the help menu, about is A. And yeah, we already used A, but you can use it again as long as it's on a different menu. Okay, so it's not going to be in the same place. Now it seems like last time we thought the names that all of these components were given were pretty good. We didn't need to change them. Let's double check. We have file, tool strip menu item, that's good. Open tool strip. I like those names. Those names are very descriptive. We know what it's talking about, right? So let's create some code. Let's do our exit menu first. So I'm going to double click on exit. Do that every time. We want application.exit. Let's put a comment up here. Exit the application. A couple other comments before we get too much in here. 1, 2, 3. This is our constructor for our form. And form partial. I'm banging into myself. All right. So now we have our exit menu working. Let's run it, make sure. We haven't tried our menu. Here's our menu. All looks good. Click exit. Yay, it works. So the next thing that we could get working pretty quick is our help about. Whenever we did our about form last time, we created a new form in our project. That seemed to work great. Let's do that again. In our project, right click and add a Windows form. And we'll make this be our about form. Now we'll make it super small, or a lot smaller. I'm going to set my background image to be that same image. And then I want to put a label on here to talk about our application. Let's set up our text. We'll say this is the Dialog app. And then I'm going to use this drop down arrow to add more lines. Version 1.0 created for 29/2020 coronavirus pandemic. That all displaying. Yeah, I'm going to make it a little bigger. I think I want my back color to be a little bit different. Maybe font. Perfect. Well, I'll put in a button anyways. Here's a button. I'm going to name this button OK. Make its text property be OK. Make its font size a little bigger because it looks kind of silly beside that giant label. And then I'm going to double click it to add code. And we're just going to say close this form. Very, very simple about form. Of course, we could use a message box or something like that. We go back to it. Which one? I added a label and a button. And in the code, I said this because it is this form about form that we want to close. Is that it? Okay, so in our main form then, you are welcome, sir. In our main form, let's display our form about. We want that to happen when somebody chooses it off the menu. So double click on your about menu item. We want to instantiate a new form. Let's call it about. And it's going to be an instance of our about form. We want to show it. And remember, we want to show it as a dialog box so that we sit here and wait for it to get done. A couple of other things about that. Let's go back to our about form design. Click on your form itself and look at the properties. Last time, we had one that really came out like an about form. If you go to your control box, change that to false. That'll get rid of all of the minimize, maximize, close buttons so that all they can do is click OK. So let's try that. All right, we have our menu form ready. Let's run it. I click Help, About. Here's our beautiful About form with no minimize, maximize, close things. So we can make sure it's sized the way we want. We can click OK. Perfect. That work for everybody? Excuse me. Exhausted.
Yep, that worked fine for me.
Good. I love it, I love it. Okay, so now we're ready to really do our file stuff. So first of all, let's take a look at the common controls that we're going to have to add to our form. We know that we can find these controls under our All Windows Forms controls, but we could also get a little bit more specific and just look at the dialogues that are available to us. We've used like the font dialog and the color, a few others we haven't used, huh? We want to try the open file dialog this time. So let's drag that onto our form. And again, it's going to go to our component tray. Click on that component and let's take a look at its properties. When we are using the open file dialog, we're just saying this is the standard Windows file open, right? We use it all the time. The properties that we have available to it are things that we would think of when we're working with a file. So for example, the default extension, say we could put something here like txt. Then if the user didn't type that extension, the extension would be added. So we could make sure it's a text file. Here's our file name. Let's say here we would like for it to be saying.txt. And then that would be the file name that pops up suggested. We can also set up a filter. So like down here it says, oh, if you want to set up a filter where they can look at all C# files, or they can choose to drop down all files, set it up this way. So let's try that. We want to do text files instead of C#. So we'll type text files. Then we need the pipe character, which remember is that bar. It's shift and the key above enter to do that pipe character. And if they choose text files, we want to use the filter or the wildcard star.txt and only display files that are a file type text. Now we're going to do another pipe and say that if they want all files, then our filter after a pipe is star.star, which is the wildcard for all files. I'm going to close my double quotes there. Cool, cool. Now we have some other options that we can choose to set up in our properties if we like. Multi-selective file names, where we'd get several of them back. Show help, lots of different things. I want to change the title. Let's make this be Names File Open. All right, there's a lot of stuff we've changed properties for. So now let's put some code in to make this happen. We want this to happen if somebody uses the open on our file menu. So let's double click open. And what we want to do is our open file dialog. We'd like to show that. And of course, just like our form, we're going to show it as a dialog so that our application waits for a response. Let's try it. File open. We see here's our title, sayings file open. It's defaulting to our documents folder, which is fine. And here's our file name that was already preloaded, saying.txt. Over here we have our selection, our filter, and I don't know what that weird double quote there, I think we shouldn't have that. I'm going to go into a folder that has text files. It's working, I'm just seeing text files. What about if I change to all files? Again, I've got a weird double quote there in my wildcard match, so I don't think that's going to work. It doesn't, so I think we need to get rid of those double quotes. Let's try, but everything else looks good. So if we go back to our form and look at our open file dialog properties, I'm going to get rid of these double quotes. I included them because they're included in the example, but obviously they didn't want us to include them. All right, so that should fix that problem. We'll make sure the next time we try it. But we still have some code we need to add. So our file dialog box is showing. That's great. But remember, we have to be concerned with what does the user pick from this dialog box. We want a file name. We need a file name to be able to open a file or to write a file, right? So that's what we're using this dialog thingy for, is to get a file name. That's all we want. We need to check the results from our dialog. If you remember, we did that when we were working with the dialog boxes a couple weeks ago. So we set up a variable named result that is a dialog result. We're going to set that variable equal to the response from our show dialog. Did they click OK? Did they click cancel? What did they do? So if the result is dialog result OK, then that means they clicked the OK button after they thought they selected a file. So we should have a good file selected. Let me move this out of the way. Notice the formatting on here. Because it's an if statement, we have to set up our result variable first within its own set of parentheses. Set the result variable equal to the result from the show dialog command. Then we can compare that result to OK to see if they clicked OK. Now, if they did, we should have a good file name. Let's use a message box to see it. I'll use that interpolated string, $, file name is going to be open file dialog 1 dot file name. So that's the file name that they picked. Let's try it and see if it works. File, open, navigate around. I'm going to go into my 120 folder. I'm seeing only text files. I don't see that weird double quote. Choose all files. I get all my files. So that looks good. You can pick any of your files. It's not going to hurt anything. We're not actually writing them. We're just using that file name. So when I click open, I'll get a message from our message box with that full, complete file name. Looks great. Are you getting a file name? So we could take that file name and we could use it to open our file or write our file or do any of those things that we did in the applications that we were writing last time. Look good? So now what about saving a file? Well, let's think about how Windows does this. It's kind of weird, right? So let's think about using like Word, because it's kind of the simplest, right? So you're using Word and you say, you've got a brand new file, document 1, you click save. Word doesn't just automatically save that as document 1, does it? Word assumes that you would like to save this as a new name. So it actually takes you to the Save As dialog so that you could save that document. Now, if you open a document that already exists and you click Save, Word's like, oh yeah, okay, I know what this file is. And Word just updates that document that you opened, right? So it's actually intelligent. It decides, do I know the file name to save, or do I need to save this as a file first? What's the status? So we're going to have to set up a variable so that we can do that same kind of thing. Let's do that. We're going to make it be a class level variable. And this is going to be a string, and it's going to be our save file name. We're going to start out with a null value so that we can tell if we've gotten a good file name or not. So if somebody opens, we really could use that, right? Save file name equals the file name that they picked. So they tried. We know we've got it. So now if somebody tries to click save at that point, we would say, oh, voila, we can do that. We'll just save that file. And we wouldn't do any interaction with them on the screen, right? So we're getting things set the way we want them. Let's put a couple more comments in here. My about. Display the help about form. And then in our tool strip open, display the file open dialog box for selection. Okay, so we're ready then. If somebody clicks save, if the save file name is not empty, then we would just save the file, right? file. Instead of saying is, let's say will be, so that when you guys look at this at 3 in the morning, you won't think that that was enough code to actually save it, because no, it was not. This is just a simulation. We're not actually saving it. We know how to do that from that other application. So if they choose save and we already have a file name set, we're good to go. We would save this file if we were actually doing that kind of stuff in this application. Now, if it's not, we got to do something else. We've got to run our save as dialog. So run in our save as, we're going to be doing very much similar processing to what we did in our open file dialog, but we're going to be using the save file dialog instead of the open file dialog. So we need to add that to our project. And then we'll be able to create our code using IntelliSense, right? And actually test it. So in our form, let's find our save file dialog, add it, and let's check its properties. Just like the open file dialog, we can do a filter, we can set our file name, we can set many different properties that are really, really helpful to us. Let's put a title here. Names, file, save as. So we can make it as specialized as we want. Now we're ready to actually add our code. Let's go ahead and create our event procedure for somebody clicking File, Save As. We will make this work for both our Save button and our Save As. So if they click Save As, we want to run this same method. And let's create that method. So I said it's going to be super similar to the open. We're going to set up a result. We're going to check to see if our result from our save file dialog. Now, how can we tell which one is which? There's so many different items here in IntelliSense. Well, we're looking for one that is an object in our code, which is this kind of grayed icon. You'll see our event procedures have this purple box. We don't want it to be an event procedure. That's a click type event. And then the ones that are the actual class itself have the gold class, object type icon. So we can usually tell from the casing, but that's the one we want, our save file dialog one. And we want to show that dialog. And then we're going to check our results. And if our results equal a dialog result of OK, then we know that they selected us a location to save this file with a good file name. I want you to use our save dialog one dot file name. So if we were to save this file, that would be the file name that we would be using. And we're going to use that in our global variable to say that, yes, we do already have a file name set up. Okay, just a couple more comments here. So in our save as, save dialog box and display chosen file name. And our tool strip up here, we'll execute the save as method. And then on our save, we'll check for valid file name to save or run save as. So looking good, everything's looking great. Let's try running it, testing some things. Run. First of all, if I choose File Save without doing anything, we should see the Save As dialog box come up. There we go. That looks good. Pick a file. Sure, I want to replace it. Nothing's going to happen. I'm not doing anything to it. And we get our message box with this full path name. Perfect. So that looked good. If I choose Save As, should get the same type thing, only I have that file name that I had already picked previously. Awesome. And then my file open should still do the same thing. So it looks like everything's working. Woohoo, great. So we're in really good shape. But what if we decide we want to add a toolbar? Of course we want a toolbar, right? We always want a toolbar. Nobody likes menus without toolbars. So we might need to do a little adjusting in our code. Let's check. Get rid of some of these extra using statements here. So in our code, if somebody chooses exit, that's okay. We don't need to put that on our toolbar. If they choose help about, we show the about form. That's okay. We probably don't need that one on our toolbar. But now this one, if they choose file open, it would be nice if we had an open on our toolbar. So let's prepare for that. Let's create a method. What do we call that other one down here? Run save as. Let's do run open. Make it a little consistent. Now in our open, we want to move this code. So instead of using this code in our open tool strip menu, let's move it down to this new method. And now in our tool strip, let's use that method. Now it's happy it was grayed out, huh? And I think I want to move the comments too. And drag those down to this new method. Didn't like that at all. How about I do my old-fashioned cut and paste, huh? Just this weird references and things we have. Okay, so that's going to display the file open dialog box, and our open tool strip menu is going to call the open method. So now, if we put in a toolbar, we can just have it run open also. Good, good. Now our save does a little bit, so we're going to need to extract that out. And we'll call this method check save as, and we want to move this code into this new method. And in our save tool strip menu, we want to run check save as. Okay, so they click save. We say, can we believe them? And we check to see if there's a file name. And if not, we run the save as. Probably need to do that in both places, huh? Whether they click save or save as. Can't trust them. Check to see if the file is already been. That all looks really good. So now we're ready. We can just do the same exact thing if we use our toolbar. I'm going to save everything, go back to my form, add in the toolbar. So again, I can find it under all Windows Forms Controls or Menus and Toolbars. I'll look at the all. And is it Tool Strip? We want the tool strip itself. We drop it on our form. Just going to put it right under the menu strip. And again, we're going to have our tool strip down here in our container area. All right. All of these components are set up for us to be able to access them really easy without having to dig through a bunch of stuff. That's why we have this component tray. Okay, so for this first item, we're going to make this be open. So it's going to be a button. And I want to set some properties for it. First of all, the name is not near as nice as the menu name. So let's fix this name. I'm going to make it be open tool strip button. You get rid of that one. And then I'd like to find the open image. I had downloaded all of those image files from Microsoft's website. I always want to import them. And I've got that image library, and I just want to find the open. Oh, they had open file. I think I'll use that. Open file. And then I want to change my text to say open. And then if I click in my tooltip text, it'll change it to be the same. Okay, so there's my first one. Let's associate it with code. I'm going to double click on it. My open tool strip button should execute my run open. Slide, slide, slide. That should do it, right? Now it should work. Because that's the awesome thing about setting things up in methods. Let's try it. Click my open, and there's my open dialog. Everybody's work okay?
Yep, worked great for me.
Got it, got it. Yay. Let's do another one. So whenever we're looking at a toolbar, we do usually have like a file open, and then we have save, and save as is what we'll make ours. So let's add another one that's our save. It'll be a button, and at the top, let's make it named properly. So I want this to be save, tool strip button. My image, I'm going to import. Go to save. I think most of Springfield has decided that they don't have to stay home anymore. I don't know about you guys, but you hear all the race cars out there. I live in race car land. SA, I know you guys know a better way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to look at save, and I do have a save as. So in save, I'm going to pick one because that one that I got last time was ugly. So I think I want this bluish. Is that one going to match? They just don't quite match. I'm going to go with the smaller one. Okay. Little small, not too bad. Now my text is going to be save. And if I click in my tooltip text, it actually had already changed it for me. Now if they click save, we want to do our save function. So let's double click that. And we want to execute the one that checks things. So check save as. Let's try it. If we do file, whoops, click the toolbar, file save, we should see our save as. If we choose open and choose a file first, then we click our save button. It should just save it. So we can see our difference depending on whether we've already accessed a file or not. Perfect. Okay, so the last one then is going to be our save as. So let's add one more button. I'm going to name it save as. Get rid of the one. Now for our image, look in the save as folder. There's only the one. Hopefully that'll match. Now my text, I'm going to make it be save file as. Okay. Now for this one, let's double click it. We want to run the same thing. Because what if they click save as and hadn't actually saved the file? We'll catch it. So just like in 5 or 10 minutes, we can implement that toolbar because we've made plans in our menu bar to have things structured in such a way that we could reuse our code. Let's make sure it's all working. Does the same thing no matter what we do. Now, icons are a little wackety. That middle one's just not quite right. Don't like it. Now, when we are looking at this, of course, we are going to have to remember that we have a lot of connections here. We have a lot of methods that are calling other methods. So if the pieces start getting out of hand, there are lots of things that you could do to bring it under control. So we know that the UML diagram would show us what all methods exist in our code, but that really wouldn't show us the relationships. If you pull out some of your 120 tools and you think about a hierarchy chart where you just have like the overview of what calls what, we could have, our form calls our form load, calls our save as. So it's really kind of a central location that starts off a lot of these processes. So for example, if somebody clicks the save on our menu, then that's going to cause this event procedure to fire, the click event. The click event procedure is going to run the check save as method. The check save as method is going to check the status of our file name, and if it's allowed, it's going to run the save as dialog box to actually save or do further processing. So we see that our methods can get pretty deep in calling each other, and that's when we start really gaining benefit, I say, from doing that structured code and reusing those things. In the textbook, go backwards here. When they were showing us how to do the syntax to access the parent folders with the ... objects, I've lost it now, a little further back. They show us that in the stream writer, there's additional parameters. So besides passing the file name to a stream writer, we could pass a Boolean, and in this particular case, that Boolean of true would tell the system that instead of creating a new version of this file, we wanted to add to or append to the file that's already there, that already exists. So we have options like that that we can use to extend the abilities. All right, that looks really good. I think that's where we are. Next week, we'll look at implementing files in our audio CD application so that we can save the audio CD information that's been entered, and so that we can read it back in later. So we'll be adding our menus and our toolbar to our application to make it kind of match up with that application that's required for the final. So we should have plenty of time to go through those, get all that thing all updated to where it's a good example for you. Which video is the assignment for? It is, actually, you could do it without watching a video if you like. because we've already done a lot of it. So this example right here, example 13.5, that's the one that it's talking about. So it's almost exactly like the application that we did, a little bit different so that you can see, a little bit of difference in things, but it's reading a text file named name. And you're going to need to be sure that you have it in the right location and the right path, depending on how you want to read that. But you don't really have to watch the video if you want to just go after it that way. If you want the video, it should be in Canvas. Let's make sure. Okay, yeah, so each of the videos is walking through a different example in that chapter of that PDF. So it would be this 13.5 video. And we've done a lot of this already. So these videos you can refer to and pause and do all of that kind of thing, but you may not need them. It's up to you. Any other questions? Sir? I hope you guys are all doing okay. Missing everybody. Ready for it to stop raining? Get outside. Keep everybody healthy and safe. All righty, great. I think we've just whizzed right through everything. I'm going to try to set up the Visual Studio Live share. Now after we get done, if anybody wants to hang on and see if they could connect using it, it requires Visual Studio 2019. Yeah, you're going to want to put 13.5 on TFS. Just that 13.5 one. Okay, so if you want to hang around and try the live share, do. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday. Unless you got questions. Bye. Guys, have a great one. Live share is kind of a way where we're all supposed to be able to edit the same code all at once. If anybody wants to try it, on Visual Studio 2019, if you have 2019 installed, if you go up to Tools and look at Get Tools and Features, say yes. It's going to show you all of these workloads, and on Microsoft's site they have these great things that say just install a workload that needs it. Well, there's a better way. You can go to individual components, and down at the very bottom is live share. So check it and see if you've got that, if it will let you. And let me know. Woohoo! OTC just received a bunch of money. A lot of it's going to students. Make sure you're answering emails and things. That's awesome. Okay, does anybody have it? Live share? Will it let you install it? Can you get to it? Is anybody there? Okay, I don't think you're there. I know Tomas has probably just gotten disconnected. I'm going to end this meeting. Hopefully, we can try the live share when the internet is not being so snarky. Oh, you're on here. Do you want to try this? Can you even try this with that remote thing that you're using? Or are you finishing up? What is it about? It's about being able to connect to Visual Studio and like update the same code at the same time. But I don't know if we should try it with your remote desktop. I don't want to get it messed up. We'll try it with your Mac after we get it working, and then we should be all good. Or your other machine. See if we can make it work that way. So let's not try it with that remote thing. Okay. We'll try it later. I'll show it to you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.